Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today's phrase is to be awash. To be awash. To be awash with something means to be covered in water. And like many of our other idioms, this one comes directly from our days of shipping. Remember, in the old days, we used to leave the UK by boat to immigrate to other countries. And, Britain had many colonies where we would arrive by boat. To be awash means to be covered in water. So many of our boats were awash while traveling. These days, you might hear the word awash in a 19th century novel to describe a boat in the rough seas becoming awash with water. It's very picturesque and builds up a scene. More commonly, however, to be awash now, these days, is used as a metaphor. For example, the media is awash with a particular story. Some people believe that sport is awash with drugs. It means saturated with or covered with. To be awash. To be awash is very common. For example, this morning on the BBC, the news is all awash with the story about a BBC presenter. Now, all awash we use for emphasis, okay? All awash. Awash and all awash as a metaphor is usually negative. The media is awash with this bad story, or you could say sport is awash with drugs, according to some people. Music is awash with images of violence and hypersexuality. You could say the road outside is awash with traffic. It's usually used in some negative way. If you want to talk about the same effect in a positive way, you would have to use another verb completely, which is oozing with. And you can check the spelling in the transcript. To ooze is when something emerges slowly from a bottle or a container. So when you're washing up the plates and you use that liquid soap, you have to press the bottle and the soap oozes out into the sink or on top of the plates. Likewise, when you're brushing your teeth, you press the tube of toothpaste and it oozes out onto the toothbrush. So in a positive way, we can say, oh, that actress is oozing with beauty, for example. Yeah. Oozing, though, is much more personal. So you can't describe a person as being awash with bad behavior. I mean, you could say that, but it doesn't quite sound right. Okay, you would have to talk about their characteristics, not the whole person. That person's gambling behavior is awash with criminality, you could say, for example. Or that person's habits is making me suspicious. I think that perhaps his life may be awash with drugs or something like that. Yeah, there's different ways you can use it. I don't want to try to put ideas into your mind, but it's not usually used in such a personal way. Oozing, on the other hand, is, because it's positive. So awash is usually bad things, and oozing with is usually when a person or a thing is oozing with good behavior, covered completely in good things, yeah? A millionaire sometimes is oozing with money. you know. Someone who's very well dressed and looks after their appearance could be oozing with sex appeal. They look very attractive to the person. So, awash and oozing. So, this morning, and for the last number of days, there's been a story about a BBC presenter who has done something wrong. The story is very convoluted and really weird because it's been the center of the media now for 4 or 5 days. The story isn't going away, but nobody knows who the presenter is. So we have a scenario where there's a BBC TV presenter who's a household name who has been involved with a 17-year-old girl, and there's a question around the legality of it. Now, in different parts of the UK, until recently, I think it was perfectly possible to marry at age 16, and you can still do that with parents' permission if everyone's in agreement. So I'm not sure why this is a story. And again, Britain, as you know, we've gone over this a few times, is a little bit obsessed with morality. A bad man has done a bad thing. And that kind of attitude is really unhelpful. The media right now are awash with this story. This man cannot be named for legal reasons. In the past, the BBC and other news outlets have accused people wrongly, and it's gone to court, and the media have been fined. And there was one particular instance with our pop star Cliff Richard. Some years ago, he was accused of holding child pornography, and he was away on tour singing, I think, and the police arrived at one of his houses here in the UK and entered without permission. Then he was cleared of all wrongdoing. There was never any evidence found. And the court ruled that the media should not be able to name someone until they've been charged or arrested. So the media are being very careful not to name this BBC TV presenter, even though we all know who it is. We all know who it is because on social media it's very clear, and on the BBC they've told us that the presenter has been suspended. So it's very clear to everyone who's not there. I have a good idea who it is, especially since certain images of this person have been circulating on social media. I don't know for sure, but I'm 95% sure I know who it is. But it's a weird situation. Everyone knows who it is, but no one's talking about it. For those of you who are old enough to remember the TV show Dallas from the 1980s, do you remember when one of the main characters was shot? In English, his name was J.R., John Ross. And for almost a year, the whole country was talking about who shot J.R., who was it? And it was one of the media's best kept secrets because nobody knew until the next series came. That's the kind of feeling that I have about this story. But also, I'm really suspicious of it because just like last time with Philip Schofield, if you remember my podcast from a few weeks ago, there's money going places with this story. There's money being made from this story. For example, the family of this young lady went to the Sun newspaper and sold the story to them. The BBC, by reporting it every 2 minutes, are also making money from this because they're getting loads of viewers who are speculating who this person could be. Then, of course, the person himself, when eventually he is named, or if he comes forward, he may well give interviews to the media, all of which will be paid for. So the whole thing is really weird because this is all about a young girl who's been intimidated by a BBC TV presenter, and that whole thing is a commodity, a web of money being exchanged, and I don't feel comfortable with that. It's kind of similar if you go to the doctor. The moment you make that appointment with the doctor by calling him on the telephone, money starts moving. The receptionist gets paid, the doctor will get money from the government at your appointment, the pharmaceutical company gets money by the doctor recommending a drug. The whole thing sparks a huge chain of money moving, but we don't see any of that. And it's the same with your learning English, you know? You go to an English school, suddenly all the lights come on in the system, you give the money, everyone gets paid, books are given out, and then there's a question of what you get for your money. So these are all very deep philosophical, ethical questions, but I don't think that kind of model of keeping a story going for 4 or 5 days is sustainable because it's boring and it's kind of ignoring the deeper things which are happening in our society. It's lowering down our minds to sheer stupidity, and that in turn distracts us from things like learning. It's strange. Anyway, in other news, on this day in 1988, Michael Jackson arrived in the UK for his first ever UK solo tour, and it was very successful. I wasn't there, but many people rushed to see him. Simply Red, the UK band, had their first US #1 single with Holding Back the Years. Chris Wood, I don't know who that is, but apparently he was in a band called Traffic, if that means anything to you. There's loads of other things that happened today. Oh, Olivia Newton-John, she had a hit with her single Xanadu, which came from the movie of the same name in 1980. They put up a statue of John Lennon in Trafalgar Square on this day. But it's really strange. I don't know why I haven't seen that. Maybe they've taken it down already, but a statue erected in the memory of John Lennon was unveiled in the year 2000. Apparently, the sculpture featured a revolver with a knotted barrel and was created by a Swedish artist, Carl Fredrik Reuterswärd. I just had a quick look on the internet about this. This statue of John Lennon is called Non-Violence, also known as the Knotted Gun, and it's made of bronze. Now, I can't find any record of it being in Trafalgar Square, so I'm guessing it was quickly moved from there. And I also don't know if that was the original, because the artist, it seems, made many copies of this. The original now is with the United Nations, and the copies, more than half of them, are in Sweden and other cities around the world, but There's none in the UK. I mean, there are statues of John Lennon around the UK, but not this one. Apparently, in Belfast, a copy of this statue was given. I guess Belfast is in the UK, isn't it? It's our principality or province of Northern Ireland. And it was a gift from the Olsen family. I don't know who they are. But anyway, very interesting. Yeah, I'd like to know where that statue is. So I'll need to dig a little bit deeper. But if you are interested in John Lennon, yeah, there's other things around London dedicated to him. I'm sure there's a statue of him at the end of Carnaby Street in London, but I don't think it's the same one. Also, on this day in 1962, Ray Charles was at number one on the UK singles music chart with the song I Can't Stop Loving You. Lovely song. In fact, if I remember correctly, the Ray Charles choir, his backing singers, are still around singing solo, even though he's been dead for years. They did very well on that piece of music. I remember the song I Can't Stop Loving You. I mean, I wasn't born, but it was still very famous in the 80s when I was growing up. Oh, Gareth Gates' birthday's today, if you like that kind of music. Let's see, who else? Oh, Liz Mitchell, yeah, from Boney M. She was born in 1952. It's her birthday today. Do you remember Boney M? Daddy Cool, Rasputin. Oh, they were very famous all over the world. I'm sure you know Boney M. I love Boney M. Uh, their big hit Rivers of Babylon as well. Actually, I follow her on Facebook, Liz Mitchell. Um, oh, Harry Styles. I didn't know he was in the band One Direction. Well, on this day in 2019, he had a court case because there was a person sleeping outside his house and wouldn't leave him alone. And he had to go to court to get rid of the person. They were stalking him. Stalking, I'll put the word in the transcript. To stalk means to follow someone either because you have a mental illness or because you're obsessed with the person. And sometimes famous people have problems with this kind of thing. Oh, Soul Asylum. Do you remember their big song? What was it? Like a train rolling down the track? Yeah, yeah, Runaway Train it was called in 1993. I liked that song, but I didn't know they had any other records. Well, anyway, the lead singer, Dan Murphy, it's his birthday today, 1962. Although I do like that one about Boney M. If you haven't heard of Boney M before, just put the name into YouTube. I think you'll like it. That's it from me. Have a great day. Bye.